also Robert Robertson, who was in the committee at the Chamber of Commerce to do with the airport. Mayor Patch gave the main address, and he mentioned about how the airport has a good future for the city, and he mentioned how hard the Beverly Aero Club people worked to start the airport, and also how much work the Chamber of Commerce did in starting it.
So we're off and running at this point. The airport is officially, as you said, the Beverly Municipal Airport. Okay. Now, we're going to show two pictures here. The first one is the picture of J. Wyman Allen. And you mentioned him a minute ago. And the notes here say that he was the treasurer of the Aero Club?
He was the treasurer of the Aero Club. And as I said before, he had experience in airport development and construction, and he really led the group in picking the landing site there.
The other picture we have is one of a gentleman by the name of Pleedy Huzzy.
Yeah.
And he, in addition to his airport notoriety, he, of course, was owner of the Huzzy's Garage down in Beverly Cove, and an inventor of sorts, and a well-known figure here in Beverly for many, many years.
He was active with the Aero Club right from the beginning. He became the president of the Aero Club in 1941, just before the war started. In fact, I think he was the last president of the Aero Club.
Okay.
Yes.
Why don't we get into some of the pictures here? We have you have a set of photo stats there, and we'll go right along here together. We'll go to the second, actually the first photo here. And would you comment on this one that we have here? Buell Air Sedan, I believe it is.
Yes. Well, this was one of the first two aircraft which the Aero Club bought in early 1930. It was a cabin biplane. That is, it was an enclosed cabin in between the wings, which the people entered, rather than an open cockpit on the top that most biplanes had. I wonder if I could mention about the formation of the North Shore Airways, which took place in August of 1929. This was a group of men headquartered in Chelsea, actually, and they were formerly known as the Wetmore Savage Aircraft Corporation. And the airport, the people of the airport, the Beverly Aero Club, they did not have too much business ability. They didn't have the experience of aviation before the airport was formed, and the North Shore Airways, which formed, was a better leader, would be a better leader for the airport than the Aero Club would be, they thought. So they were in existence for about a year, till about the summer of 1930, during which time the airplane that I just mentioned was bought. And the next photograph was an Aero Sport, which was the second aircraft that they bought.
Okay. Getting back to this picture here of the Buell Air Sedan, this fellow, Slim Halstead, was one of the first real, shall we say, heroes of the airport up there, really. I mean, he was one of the first full-time pilots that flew in and out of there.
Yes, and he was an instructor there. The North Shore Airways, he was the vice president of North Shore Airways, which I just mentioned, and Bob Wetmore was the president, and Bob Burnson was the treasurer.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Rich, I think we might have mentioned this on one of the programs, but Emilio Cuccinelli told me an interesting story about Slim Halstead. I guess that Cooch went up for a ride with Mr. Halstead, and he was wearing a brand new fedora and open cockpit and all of that, and I guess he leaned over and over the edge went the hat, and they followed it all the way down, but when they got down on the ground they couldn't find the hat. Cooch remembers that to this day.
One of the hazards of early sightseeing flights.
Some of these early
Right.
planes, though, they must have been a real adventure to go up in them. I don't know as I would really want to, you know.
But they didn't know any better then. You know.
Well, this is true.
There was no looking forward. I mean, that was
Yeah.
state of the art then.
This is true.
They didn't
It only
realize.
looks primitive to us.
Yeah, yeah. You're right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, Paul, where do we go from here?
Well,
Try the next picture? Or?
I could mention that in the fall of '29, before actually these aircraft were bought, they finally built a hangar. They went almost, well, a little over a year. They went with no facilities there at all, except for a field.
God help me if you had to go to the bathroom or anything.
Did they have any fueling facilities there, or was that done strictly with a truck or something like that? If anybody needed to refuel?
I would say a truck, yes. Yes, they didn't have fueling facilities.
Pretty Spartan.
Yes, yes.
Okay. We're up to item 3, or did you have some more to say about the second item there?
Well, I just thought that after all these things that went on at the field in 1929, the incorporation of the North Shore Airways, which I didn't mention before, that occurred in April of '29. Charles Hood loaning additional land, the formation of the North Shore Airways, the building of the hangar, and the purchase of the new aircraft. All that prompted the first real air show for the official opening of the field, which occurred in over a 3-day period of May 30, 31, and June 1 of 1930. This was sponsored by the Earl Wardell American Legion Post.
Is this what we're looking at here at item 3? One of the photographs taken at that point?
Well, no, not actually. Not in that photograph. That's the Aerosport.
Okay.
In photo 4 is the Aerosport again taken off.
Same plane?
Same plane, I would say.
Okay.
Photo number 5.
These are all photographs taken in 1930. We have to say that at this point, right? These
I'd say
pictures are
1930, yes, because the airplanes were
Authentic photographs.
obtained in early 1930.
Okay.
Although in picture 5, which shows the hangar and the office, tin office building to the left, I would say that was probably the late 1929.
Okay. Do we see this building here today, Paul?
Yes, that's still up there. That was last used by Revere Aviation, who is no longer there. And I think there's a new operator that's replaced them that's using the hangar at the moment. It's just beyond the barracks building up there.
Okay.
The next photo is an aerial photo showing the hangar, which you saw in the previous picture, and the original field, the dirt road leading in from Route 97 on the upper center. Down at the lower right center is the additional 10-acre plot of land which Charles Hood loaned to the Aero Club so that east-west takeoffs could be made. Previous to that, only the north-south direction could be
You say
taken
you
off.
loaned it to them.
Well, I guess
Eventually
they
it became-
leased them. The Aero Club leased the
I see.
land from them.
Today, it's all a part of the airport as we know it today. All of this.
All that plus many more acres.
Many more acres,
Yes.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Some fine aerial photographs here, Rich. They're really outstanding. Beautifully taken.
Now, the official opening air show, which I mentioned earlier, over a 3-day period in 1930, is taking place in this next picture, which is similar to the previous picture. It's taken just a little later in time because it shows now the addition of the office building to the left of the hangar, which you can just barely make out because of the crowds of people. It appears that tents have been set up there for various vendors, I suppose. And I can see many aircraft. I would say these are mostly transient aircraft that came in by invitation, as well as the aircraft that were based at the airport.
Yeah. This was a way of getting the public to know that the airport was there and kind of giving it some publicity and spreading the news, spreading the word that here we have an airport here.
So after all those things had occurred back in 1929 and 30, it was quite appropriate to have this official opening with an air show and air meet for the so that the public can see what the facilities.
Sure. Maybe some rides and all were offered to the, to the public.
I would think so.
Yeah.
Yes.
Quite possibly, Rich, your father, Roddy, might have gone up in a plane.
No, I don't think so. He wasn't too much into airplanes. He liked to go up there, but just strictly as a person that liked to be a spectator. We didn't get him up in a plane until 1954.
Is that right?
We flew in a DC-3 down to Portland from Boston. And that was one of my first rides, although my first ride did take place at Beverly Airport.
Wow.
3 of us kids got together without my parents knowing it and took one of these 20-minute sightseeing rides for, I think it was $5 back then in 1956, thereabouts.
I recall going up there as a young man and seeing those little cubby planes come in and bouncing off the tarmac there or whatever. And that didn't do anything to infuse confidence in wanting to fly in an airplane for me as a young fellow. But at this point in time up there, though, they were all, you'd have to call them daredevils, you'd have to call them adventurers, really, that would undertake...
the real pioneers.
Yes, indeed. Slim Halsteads and others that we'll mention here as we go along. Okay, now we're looking at some advertisements here, I believe, are we not?
Yes. Well, there was also a show over a 3-day period in July 3, 4, and 5 of 1931, also sponsored by the American Legion Earl Wardell Post. And here is the front and the back pages of this the program, which was passed out at the air show. This meet actually was larger than the meet of the previous year. And I don't know exactly what prompted this show. It was just more, I guess, advertising the publicity for the airport.
And, getting the place on the map and all. I imagine, Rich, it must have been quite fascinating to begin taking these aerial photographs at this point in time. I mean, this is when the first of them, I'm sure, were really taken on a serious note.
Oh, it was probably like you see satellite photos of parts of the Earth today are so interesting. That's probably equivalent of that back in those days. I mean, the average person never got up in a plane, never was privy to a view like that, so I'm sure it was absolutely fascinating.
Sure. And they're in the open cockpits and they're just leaning right over the edge there with a camera clicking away. That must have been a good bit of fun.
Indeed.
Yep. There's a fine picture here, Paul, that we're looking
of the
at.
center of Beverly,
Of Beverly
looking down.
Center, probably one of the very first of its kind to be taken.
I would say so. Those two aerial shots of the airport, which we saw earlier, were taken by Winston Pote, who was a well-known photographer. And he made quite a few flights out of Beverly Airport, taking pictures of the estates along the North Shore.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. What do we have next?
Well, the next photo is a Travel Air biplane, which probably was not based at the airport, but just a transient aircraft which came in during an air meet, which appears to be going on based on the number of people in the background in this photograph. I would say probably this was probably the mid-1930 era.
We do see the Beverly Aero Club hangar there in the background?
Yes, yes, and the roof of the office shed over on the left side of the picture.
Yeah. Because we're looking at these photographs that were taken, as the caption says, photo courtesy Beverly Times. And Rich, you and I have already discussed the fact that the negatives, the fine negatives to these pictures were destroyed here some years ago when the Times ceased to be operating on Cabot Street and it was moved up to where it's now located. And that was a real loss of treasure when you think of all these fine pictures. We're lucky